This is ASMR News. Drift off, wake up, or simply relax with the world's biggest headlines. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on Friday at the age of 87 due to complications from metastatic cancer of the pancreas. She was appointed to the court in 1993 by President Bill Clinton after a career of litigating for women's rights in the 1970s, followed by more than a decade on the U.S. Court of Appeals. Her death sets in motion what will be a contentious political fight for her replacement. In 2016, Merrick Garland was nominated by President Barack Obama to fill the seat of Antonin Scalia, who died on February 13th. Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to hold a vote pending the outcome of the election in November, arguing that a nomination to the Supreme Court should be made by the incoming president. However, McConnell said on Friday that he intends to hold a vote on President Trump's nominee less than 45 days before the election, hoping to cement a Republican majority in the court in the event that Trump loses. Republicans hold a 53 to 47 majority in the Senate, which must confirm the nomination. Trump has said he will appoint a woman. Two Republican senators, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine, have both announced they would not support Trump's nomination before the election. Democrats would need the support of two more Republican senators to prevent the confirmation. Supreme Court decisions are made by a majority vote. Before Ginsburg's passing, there were 5 justices nominated by Republican presidents, including Chief Justice John Roberts, and 4 nominated by Democrats. If Trump succeeds, the balance would shift to 6 to 3. In a speech at a campaign rally on Saturday night, President Donald Trump ramped up attacks against his opponent, Joe Biden, calling him the dumbest of all candidates, and at one point declaring, "Maybe I'll sign an executive order that you cannot have him as your president," a clear misunderstanding of the power granted to a president under the U.S. Constitution. He also told supporters, "You'll never see me again if he loses to Biden." Biden currently leads Trump by an average of 6.5% in national polls. Belarus has charged protest organizer Maria Kolesnikova with incitement to undermine national security. She had been driven to the Ukrainian border with 2 other people to be expelled from the country, but she prevented that by tearing up her passport and throwing it out of a car window. On Saturday, over 300 women were arrested by masked police during a peaceful demonstration in the capital of Minsk. On Thursday, President Alexander Lukashenko placed the military on high alert and said he will close borders with Poland and Lithuania amid fears of a war. Lukashenko has been clinging to power in Belarus amid mass protests since claiming victory in an August 9th election that was widely seen as rigged. He has repeatedly blamed the protest on foreign agitators while accusing NATO countries of stationing troops on his borders in preparation for an invasion. NATO leaders have repeatedly insisted that the troops are merely defense forces and pose no threat to his regime. Meanwhile, hackers have leaked what they claim is the personal data of more than 1,000 Belarusian police officers in retaliation for a growing crackdown against demonstrators, threatening that if detentions continue, we will continue to publish data on a massive scale. A list of 1,003 names of police officers, their birth dates, ranks, places of work, and hometowns was distributed by the opposition news channel Nexta Live on Saturday. It also released 7 entries with more details, including addresses and phone numbers belonging to members of the Special Anti-Terror Unit of the Interior Ministry. Taiwan scrambled fighter jets Friday when 18 Chinese aircraft, including 2 bombers and 16 fighter planes, crossed the sensitive midline of the Taiwan Strait and entered into its air defense identification zone. This type of airspace, known as an ADIZ, is one that many countries defined around their territories as a way to monitor air traffic, but is not recognized by international law. The escalation comes as relations between Washington and Beijing worsen and appeared to be a response to the visit to Taiwan by Keith Krach, the U.S. Undersecretary for Economic Affairs. A judge has blocked a U.S. Department of Commerce government attempt to ban the Chinese messaging and payments app, WeChat, that was scheduled to take effect on Sunday. U.S. Magistrate Judge Laurel Beeler said the ban raised serious questions related to the Constitution's First Amendment, guaranteeing free speech. The Trump administration has alleged it threatens national security because the app could pass user data to the Chinese government, a claim Beijing has denied. The ruling comes just after TikTok, which was also named in the Department of Commerce order, reached a deal with U.S. firms Oracle and Walmart to hopefully allow it to keep operating. A woman suspected of sending an envelope containing the poison ricin, which was addressed to the White House, has been arrested at the New York-Canada border. The White House mail screening facility intercepted a package containing ricin poison that was addressed to U.S. President Donald Trump. Both the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Secret Service were investigating where the package came from and whether others had been sent through the U.S. postal system. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police said on Saturday that it was working with the FBI. Ricin is produced by processing castor beans. It is a lethal substance that, if swallowed, inhaled, or injected, can cause nausea, vomiting, internal bleeding, and ultimately organ failure. Several global banks moved large sums of allegedly illicit funds over a period of nearly 2 decades, according to confidential documents submitted by banks to the U.S. government. 5 global banks appeared most often in the documents: HSBC, JP Morgan Chase, Deutsche Bank, Standard Chartered, and Bank of New York Mellon, the ICIJ reported. Among the types of transactions highlighted by the report, funds processed by JP Morgan for potentially corrupt individuals and companies in Venezuela, Ukraine, and Malaysia, money from a Ponzi scheme moving through HSBC, and money linked to a Ukrainian billionaire processed by Deutsche Bank. Europe is now in the middle of a second coronavirus wave as it moves into winter. Daily case numbers in the European Union and United Kingdom this week reached an average of more than 45,000 on a 14-day notification rate. Leaders have raised fears over the pressure that hospitals could face in coming months and the looming prospect of new national lockdowns. surge comes just after the summer vacation season, as workers return to city centers and children go back to school. The World Health Organization has suggested the increase could be partly down to the relaxation of measures and people dropping their guard, and evidence indicates young are driving the second surge in Europe. Despite the rising numbers of cases and recent deaths in Europe, the continent still compares favorably to the United States. Europe now has 4.4 million cases and 217,278 deaths and a population of 750 million, while the US has reported 6.7 million cases and 200,000 deaths and a population of 330 million. Lockdown measures seem to be having an effect in Australia, as it recorded its lowest daily coronavirus increase for 3 months, with just 18 new cases. The state of Victoria, which has accounted for 75% of Australia's cases, recorded 14 new infections on Sunday morning, down from 21 the day before. New South Wales and Queensland reported 2 cases each. The remaining states are yet to report their figures, but rarely record any new cases. Melbourne, the capital of Victoria, has been under tighter restrictions than other areas, including a curfew and stay-at-home orders. Anti-lockdown protests in the city have become a regular sight. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said COVID restrictions in England will get tougher if rules are not followed, as the government introduces a £10,000 fine for people who fail to self-isolate. He said the country was facing a tipping point and we have no choice. If everybody follows the rules, then we can avoid further national lockdown. British Columbia launched a new Gargle COVID-19 test for students aged 14 to 19. It is one of the first of its kind around the world, said Dr. Bonnie Henry, BC's Provincial Health Officer, at a press conference on Thursday. The BC Centre for Disease Control says the new test is just as accurate as tests using a nasal swab and is much easier to administer for children. The announcement comes at a time when testing is in high demand. Canada has seen a doubling of new daily cases in the last month, and experts are looking into the role children play in COVID-19 transmission. Israel entered a second lockdown on Friday, the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, or Jewish New Year, after registering 5,238 new coronavirus cases on Thursday. The country has recorded almost 177,000 cases and 1,169 deaths, and a population of 9 million since the beginning of the pandemic. Restaurants, hotels, and gyms, among other businesses, have been told to close, and Israelis will face restrictions on movement and gatherings for at least 3 weeks. The World Health Organization, WHO, has developed rules for the testing of African herbal remedies to fight COVID-19, following the promotion by Madagascar's leader of an untested product. Any traditional remedies that are judged effective could be fast-tracked for large-scale manufacturing. The WHO said the new rules were aimed at helping and empowering scientists in Africa to conduct proper clinical trials. Russia has agreed to sell its COVID-19 vaccine to more than 10 countries in Asia, South America and the Middle East, including Brazil, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, and India. The development could give Moscow valuable economic and political leverage internationally. Billionaire Richard Branson is going on the offensive after the coronavirus has battered its various businesses. He has created a Special Purpose Acquisition Company, or SPAC, a company with limited operating assets that raise capital through an IPO for the purpose of buying existing businesses. VG Acquisition Corp filed on Wednesday for an initial public offering on the New York Stock Exchange, with the goal of raising $400 million to buy undervalued American and European consumer businesses in sectors where Virgin has had success, including travel, leisure, entertainment, and financial services. Schitt's Creek swept the Comedy Awards, and HBO's Watchmen and Succession won several awards in the limited series and drama categories in this year's Emmy Awards for television shows. Regina King won Best Lead Actress in a limited series for Watchmen, and Zendaya won for Best Lead Actress in a drama for Euphoria. Mark Ruffalo won for Best Lead Actor in a limited series for I Know This Much Is True. This year's Emmy Awards for television took place as a virtual ceremony, with late-night TV talk show star Jimmy Kimmel serving as the host. India's military will transport supplies to thousands of troops ahead of a harsh winter, along a bitterly disputed Himalayan border with China, as New Delhi blamed Beijing for the worst border standoff in decades. The move was triggered by a border dispute with China that began in May and escalated in June into hand-to-hand combat. 20 Indian soldiers were killed, while China suffered an undisclosed number of casualties. The winner of the presidential election will determine how the United States deals with Iran and its nuclear capabilities. President Donald Trump imposed snapback sanctions on Saturday, despite opposition from Europe, reversing the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, in which Iran agreed that its nuclear program would be exclusively peaceful. The Trump administration said the measures were being reimposed under the mechanism of a deal the U.S. has quit. The UK, France, and Germany said the US had no power to carry out such a move. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani said the US faces defeat in its move to reimpose UN sanctions on the country. He said Iran would give a crushing response to America's bullying without providing details. Trump pulled the US out of the deal in 2018 without reimposing sanctions. Joe Biden has been a vocal supporter of the deal and has called the current U.S. policy toward Iran reckless. Russia now claims that Venus is a Russian planet. Dmitry Rogozin, head of the Russian space corporation Roscosmos, said the country plans to send its own mission to Venus, in addition to a planned joint mission with the U.S. The statement came the day after scientists revealed that phosphine gas had been detected in the atmosphere of Venus, possibly indicating the presence of life. The United Nations has accused Venezuela of committing crimes against humanity. The mission found reasonable grounds to believe that Venezuelan authorities and security forces have, since 2014, planned and executed serious human rights violations, some of which, including arbitrary killings and the systematic use of torture, amount to crimes against humanity, said Marta Valinas, chairperson of the UN mission. French police arrested a former presidential guard from the Central African Republic, or CAR, for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. Eric Danboy Bagal, arrested in eastern France, is accused of leading a group of largely Christian militias which carried out revenge killings after the CAR's president was ousted in 2013. Thousands of people died in the violence that followed. More than 15,000 protested in Bangkok, Thailand, calling for reform of the political system, including the rule of the monarchy. Demonstrators installed a plaque declaring Thailand belongs to the people in a bold show of opposition to the monarchy. It was laid near Bangkok's Grand Palace in the latest challenge to Thai King Maha Vajiralongkorn. Calls for royal reform are particularly sensitive in Thailand, criticism of the monarchy punishable by long prison sentences. There were no reports of violence. Two people are dead and another is missing after Cyclone Ianos swept across Greece. Hundreds of people were trapped in flooded buildings as the Medicane, or Mediterranean hurricane, battered areas north of Athens. Human rights lawyer Amal Clooney resigned from her role as Britain's special envoy on media freedom in protest at the country's intention to break international law over Brexit-related legislation proposed by the government. It is lamentable for the UK to be speaking of its intention to violate an international treaty signed by the Prime Minister less than a year ago, said Clooney, continuing that the proposed law threatens to embolden autocratic regimes that violate international law with devastating consequences all over the world. The British government acknowledges that the proposed bill could violate its international legal obligations and undercut parts of the deal it signed before Britain formally left the European Union in January. A police officer traveling as part of British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab's protection detail has been suspended after they reportedly left their gun on a plane. The officer accompanied Raab on a visit to the United States and left his weapon in a plane on their return to London's Heathrow Airport on Friday. Jake Gardner, an Omaha, Nebraska bar owner who killed a young black man during protests this spring, has been found dead of suicide days after a grand jury voted to charge him with manslaughter, police said. His attorney said his client had left Nebraska because of death threats, but was planning to return to stand trial in the May 30th shooting of James Scurlock, 22. The ex-Marine claimed he shot Scurlock in self-defense during a confrontation on a night when anti-racism protests devolved into vandalism and violence. Two people have been killed and 14 others wounded after a shooting at a house party in Rochester, New York. The city's police have been under increasing pressure over the death of Daniel Prude, a black man who was hooded and restrained during an arrest. He died in March, but the case only became public earlier this month. Rochester Police Chief Laurent Singletary has since stepped down, saying that his handling of the case was being distorted. 7 officers have also been suspended. No suspects have been arrested over Saturday's shooting, and no motive has been identified. A total of 27 sarcophagi, buried more than 2,500 years ago, have been unearthed by archaeologists in a newly found ancient Egyptian necropolis in Saqqara. The discovery is now said by experts to be one of the largest of its kind. Images released show colorfully painted, well-preserved wooden coffins and other smaller artifacts. Saqqara was an active burial ground for more than 3,000 years and is a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. Sony's new PlayStation 5 is now available for pre-order, with initial shipments scheduled for November 12th. The Blu-ray version will cost $500, and the digital-only version will cost $400. Nintendo has stopped making the 3DS family of systems, originally launched in 2011. The 3DS was a handheld console that could play games like Pac-Man and Mario Golf. It featured a 3D display that didn't require special glasses. The company said games for the 3DS will continue to be available in the Nintendo eShop, on Nintendo.com, and at retail. While not as successful as the original DS launched in 2004, which sold 154 million units, Nintendo has sold more than 75 million 3DS devices since it was launched. The current console, the Nintendo Switch, has already sold 61 million units. Following backlash from both streamers and viewers, Twitch ended its mid-roll ad system experiment. The primary complaint was that when the unskippable ads appeared, it would cause viewers to miss some content that was happening in the stream. Twitch thanked those that voiced their concerns and said that it was going to continue their work on ads in an effort to give streamers more control. With his stunning individual time trial performance on Saturday, 21-year-old Tadej Pogačar became the second youngest winner of the race, behind Henry Cornet, the 1904 Tour champion, who won at the age of 19. Pogačar turned in the greatest single-day ride in the Tour's history, at least since American Greg LeMond overtook Frenchman Laurent Fignon on the final day of the 1989 Tour, beating Fignon by 58 seconds to win the yellow jersey by a margin of 8 seconds. He started the day 57 seconds behind fellow Slovenian Primož Roglič, who had been leading for the past 2 weeks, but finished the 36-kilometer stage a minute and 56 seconds faster. Pogačar will also become the second rider in Tour history to win 3 jerseys: the yellow jersey for the best overall time, the polka dot jersey for the King of the Mountains competition, and the white jersey for the best young rider. Belgian Eddy Merckx won the yellow, polka dot, and green jerseys in 1969. Spanish triathlete Diego Mentrida is being applauded on social media after he sacrificed a place on the podium in the 2020 Santander Triathlon to give it to a competitor who took a wrong turn on the course. British athlete James Teagle was on course to win 3rd place in the competition when he made a mistake meters from the finish. Mentrida overtook him but noticed the error and stopped to allow Teagle to cross first, saying he deserved it. The race took place on the 13th of September, but footage from the race has spread on social media in the past day, as many congratulate 21-year-old Mentrida for his show of sportsmanship. In the big match of the weekend, Liverpool beat Chelsea 2-0 on a second-half brace by Sadio Mane. The second goal followed a clear mistake by Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa, who Chelsea acquired in 2018 from Atletico Bilbao for $80 million, making him the most expensive goalkeeper in the world. Chelsea was reduced to 10 players after Andreas Christensen was sent off at the 45-minute mark for a professional or deliberate foul on Mane. Jorginho missed a penalty kick for Chelsea in the second half. Elsewhere in the Premier League, Everton, Leeds United, Crystal Palace, and Arsenal won on Saturday, while Tottenham Hotspur, Brighton and Hove Albion, and Leicester City won on Sunday. Five American national team members, all of whom played in the Women's World Cup finals, have joined English teams. U.S. national Alex Morgan joined Tottenham Hotspur, Tobin Heath and Christian Press joined Manchester United, and Rosie Lavelle and Sam Lewis joined Manchester City. Morgan is infamous in England for her teacup celebration after scoring a goal against the Lionesses in the World Cup semi-final in 2019. English fans saw her tea-sipping gesture as an insult, whereas Morgan said the gesture was in honor of British Game of Thrones star Sophie Turner, whose Instagram posts use the catchphrase, "and that's the tea," while she sips from a cup. Bryson DeChambeau won the U.S. Open and its $2.25 million purse, becoming only the third player in history to complete the 4 rounds under par with a final score of 274. Matthew Wolff finished second, 6 strokes back with an even par of 280. The Open was played at the Winged Book Golf Club in Mamaroneck, New York, considered among the toughest courses in the world. This is a